But if I turned up at Heathrow tonight and Mrs O'Brien and I were nipping away for a cheeky weekend in Venice or something like that, I'd be furious. And so would you.
Oh, no, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand where people are coming from when it comes to this. But the point of the thing is that mass action is now needed, and we need to change the way we are doing things. Flights need to be... I've heard arguments before that flights need to be rationed, that every person in the country gets an allowance and they're free to spend it as they want. But then there's a limit on the total amount. And not only that, but people would be free to trade them away and to gain financially if they don't want to use them. And business would then be forced to pay far more for the privilege of flying wherever they want to go. It would force them to change the way they do things, to have more conference calls, to do things differently.
Yes, as I say, it's an odd one, because everyone's going to be in broad agreement about the central premise, but not perhaps about the details. So what's your reaction to the news today that the disruption at Heathrow is unlikely to be serious as a result of arrests made by the Metropolitan Police?
It seems to me that the climate change activists, and honestly, everybody at this point should be an activist for climate change, they're not being given a lot of choice, and what they're doing seems very minor to me.
Sorry, it's not what I asked. It's not what I asked. Sorry, it's my fault. I should have been clearer. Are you glad that the disruption has been diminished, or are you actually gutted that they are not going to be able to mess up more flights than they hoped?
I want to see much more from people. I mean, that's what I'm looking for.
Answer the question, please, Matthew.
So, am I glad that the disruption has been minimised?
Yes.
I have the same feelings as you do on this, where I'm ambivalent on the whole thing. I would like to see disruption in this issue taken more seriously, but at the same time, you feel glad that people get to go on a holiday.
Such a weird one, isn't it? And this is why perhaps it doesn't have anything like the momentum or the sense of urgency in many quarters that it should have, that we both recognise it should have. Although I'm as much part of the problem still as the solution. You've clearly moved further in the direction of the solution than I have. Who do you think is the most important constituency to address? Because obviously, you know, I know we're not meant to be mentioning Brexit, but it's impossible not to. If you're having a sensible conversation about Brexit, there's 10 to 15% of the population who will never be part of a sensible conversation about Brexit. So I think the same is probably true of climate change, and it's probably the same 10 to 15% of the population. Who are the people that need most to be persuaded? Is it the people we're describing, the ones that are broadly on side but can't yet approve of the tactics that might impact on them?
I think it's everybody. Everybody needs to wake up to where we actually are. There seems to be obfuscation from the media, from the climate change deniers, from the oil companies. All these companies seem to be putting on a united front that everything's fine, when it really dramatically is not.
So we should draw the line somewhere, like, I will mess with your holiday, I will never harm or hurt you. So it's not like they're endangering anybody to make their point, in the way that some public protests have done in the past.
The forces rallied against any positive change in this direction seem so organised and clever and smart that they go after every little thing.
Rich, actually. I think the word is rich, and then they can hire.
Absolutely.
They can hire
very smart people.
Exactly, and don't disclose that they're paying them. And they're not even that smart, but they've got so much money to spend that they can dominate platforms. Of course it is.
So you have a situation where Extinction Rebellion try and organise some events to highlight what's happening. And instead of there being a lot of positive coverage, all the coverage is on disruption to business and what's affected in London and the South East. And I'm looking at it going, but they're making a point that's incredibly valid and really urgent.
And if you were to look into the relationships between journalists who need copy, who need words with which to fill their reports, whether they're on air or in print, and those organisations that you allude to, those shady lobby groups, perhaps they call themselves think tanks, which won't disclose where their enormous amount of funding is coming from. You look at those relationships, you get the large part of the answer to your question, as I'm sure you know. The phone call on the side. We've got a nice little report coming out on Monday. Oh, excellent. Are you coming to the drinks on Wednesday? Yeah. Where will they be? Oh, number... So just round the corner from Westminster, we've got a lovely wine bar, just off Tufton Street. You could come down there, have some drinks, it'd be great. Oh, marvellous, splendid. What's that story you want me to run again? Oh, it's just something about why dirty air and fat kids are really, really important and good. And anyone who's trying to make children less obese and air cleaner is an enemy of the free market. And, oh, by the way, I'm a classical liberal, but I will never, ever, ever tell you who pays my wages. It's coming up to 11:30. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. It just reminded me there. Reminded myself is that we dropped the ball a bit on the Institute of Brilliant Ideas. Remember, we're supposed to be setting up our own think tank stroke lobby group stroke educational charity, the Institute of Brilliant Ideas. And if you pay me enough money, I'll do a report into anything you want, really. And I absolutely, categorically can't guarantee that the results will please you, but I have never yet disappointed anybody who paid me to do some research. So I can't in any way promise, pledge or guarantee that if you give me £1 million, I will conclude that eating cats is a good idea, because you, of course, are the king of cat catering in Korea, the Korean king of cat catering. I can't guarantee anything. All I can tell you is that nobody who has in the past paid me to put together a, quotes, report, end quotes, or some, quotes, research, end quotes, has ever been disappointed. How do I know that? Because no one's ever asked for their money back. But I still can't tell you who gave me the money. No, because, you know, classical liberalism. Here's Simon Conway with the headlines.
Boris Johnson is to meet the European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker for talks in Luxembourg on Monday. This morning, the Irish Prime Minister has said the gap is very wide between the EU and the UK on reaching a new Brexit deal. It's been announced the election of the new Speaker of the House of Commons will take place on the 4th of November. John Bercow will step down from the role at the end of October after holding the office for 10 years. The far-right activist Tommy Robinson has been released from Belmarsh Prison in London 2 months into his contempt of court sentence. He was handed a 9-month jail term in July for live streaming a video which featured defendants in a sexual exploitation trial. LBC weather, dry and sunny for most of the UK, breezy with scattered showers across western and northern Scotland and Northern Ireland, a high of 21 degrees.
This is LBC.
50 years ago, we made a remarkable moment in history when man landed and walked on the moon for the first time. It's amazing what we can do when we think beyond limits. That's why Vodafone are giving small businesses what they need to discover their full potential with their new unlimited 5G data plans. Plus, with the OneNet virtual landline, you can be online anywhere. Go beyond limits and see what your business can achieve. Search Vodafone Business Unlimited.
Hello, Vitality Health Insurance.
Oh, hi. Is it true if I join Vitality I get de facto 5-star rated cover, can speak to a GP 24/7, get rewarded for staying active with things like Starbucks coffee, get a little sausage dog to live with me, and you can beat my current premium by up to 10%?
Absolutely. Except one of those.
It's the dog, isn't it?
Yeah.
Time to review your health insurance. Just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
It's Flavour of the Alps week at Lidl. So we've partnered with Jet2 City Breaks to give you the chance to win a city break for 2 to Salzburg. So your shopping trip might go from this to this. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. See lidl.co.uk/jet2holidays for details. T's and C's apply.
With the Skoda Summer Special, there's even more to smile about. Because the Skoda Fabia now comes with 0% APR and £1,000 towards your finance deposit. Plus, if you order before the 30th of September, you'll get an extra £500 off list price. Search Skoda Summer Special for more information. Driven by something different. Skoda. With Solutions Personal Contract Plan, 18s plus, subject to status. Order and register by the 30th of the 9th, 2019. Retail customers only. Indemnities may be required. Skoda Financial Services. Visit skoda.co.uk.
Progressive memory loss can leave you feeling frustrated and alone. But at Recognition Health, we won't forget you. We're the brain and mind experts, working hard to change the future of MCI and Alzheimer's disease, with expert care and access to the world's most advanced treatments. Visit brainandmindexperts.com.
Word in the woods is that 3 little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with the big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies.
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
Are your energy bills running wild? Enough!
Let us take you and your bills from to Money Supermarket's Energy Monitor tames your bills so you'll never have to overpay again. Put a cork in it, Squeaky. Get Energy Monitor. Get Money Car. Money Supermarket.
The Norwegian sale is now on. Fly to Europe from £29. Live the American dream from £135. Adventure South America from just £199. And with low fares to over 150 other destinations, the world has never been closer. Start your journey at norwegian.com.
Hey,
Limited availability. All fares are one way from London Gatwick, including taxes. Baggage fees may apply. Travel from November to March, excluding weekends, school and public holidays. Visit our website for more details. Sale ends Monday.
James O'Brien on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
It's 25 minutes to 12, and it's an interesting one. I'm just wondering where you are on the scale, and I guess the easy answer is, well, we don't really fly anymore, James, if we can help it, and therefore, yes, I can approve of the activists seeking to disrupt Heathrow, because everybody with a scintilla of sincerity and concern for their fellow man moving forward. Everyone recognises the urgency of the climate crisis, but somehow I don't recognise it enough to approve of having my own holiday muffed up. But they wouldn't be able to muff up your holiday if you were holidaying in the United Kingdom or travelling by train or boat, actually, like Greta Thunberg did to get all the way to America. 11:35 is the time. And some days I really have a problem with Greta Thunberg. I'm not going to lie to you. Because I'm under pressure from my children, and inspired by her example, I now most days come into work via public transport. And on the days that I don't get a seat, I have to tell you that I harbour slightly ungenerous thoughts towards Ms. Thunberg. I really do. Especially today, a woman got on the tube with a baby on board badge. If you're outside London, you may not be familiar with this. A pregnant woman will wear a baby on board badge. Perhaps a clever but untrustworthy non-pregnant woman might also wear a baby on board badge, perhaps with a small cushion inserted up her jumper. But I did that thing that you do as well. For me, it's a reflex. I'm delighted to say it's all down to my mum. It's nothing to do with me. I'm on my feet in a flash. I was like, well, would you like to sit down? And she sits down. And that's it. I'm stuck on my feet all the way to Piccadilly Circus. Couldn't believe it. And back in the day, I'd be lounging in the back of a stretch limousine. Nick Ferrari on the radio and a pina colada and a large cigar in my hand. Those days are behind me now. I've got my face pressed into some tourist's armpit and a knapsack up my... Sean's in Mauritius. Mauritius? What are you doing in Mauritius?
Hello, how are you, James?
Oh, well, jealous now.
No, don't be. It's winter here.
Oh,
it's
is it?
all right.
Oh, all right, good answer.
Yeah.
What made you pick up the phone?
Well, I do listen to you every day, and I was very intrigued by this topic because I'm flight crew, and so I'm very opinionated on this one. We just don't need anything else that even smells of threat of safety as far as operating an aircraft.
That's a very good point. Actually, do you know, that's a wonderful thing for you to call in, actually, because we completely forgot about that. It's all very well us sitting here talking about what's the exact offence, conspiracy to commit a public nuisance. But, of course, from flight crew's point of view, having a few kilos of twisted metal flying around in the vicinity of your engines, potentially, is a different kettle of fish entirely, isn't it?
That's it, James. You've got enough. I'm not trying to make the job sound more difficult.
No.
I'm not trying to exaggerate. But the thing is, if you've got an extra threat outside of the normal day-to-day threats that you have when you operate, if you have that in the back of your mind, let's take, for example, the taser incidents that have happened with numerous aircraft in recent years, which is in itself not necessarily life-threatening, but it's another threat that's on top of the day-to-day normal threats that you have to deal with. If we then have the threat of drone activity in the vicinity of the airport, it's another thing in the back of your mind that weighs on you, and you don't need it. And as passionate as we are about climate activity, as far as
well, what are we going to do? No, I hear you, and I'm not. I mean, I am interrupting you, but I do know that. But you've made your point. I don't feel that I've cut you off in your prime, because I want to know what you do. What would you do instead? That's the problem, isn't it? Is that they would argue, well, we'd really rather not worry Sean or put anyone at risk. We're confident that we're not doing, they would also say, but you could respond by saying, well, I'm not confident enough. I don't care how confident you are. I'm the flipping pilot or I'm flight crew. What are you going to do instead?
Well, the thing is that the only thing I can do as far as I'm concerned is do my job as a pilot and do it as safe as I possibly can.
So what can they do instead? What can they do instead? Because we're not really making the moves we need to make as a species, as residents of this planet. Most people would agree on that, and this is, in the absence of a better suggestion, it's hard not to conclude that this lot are doing the least bad option.
Yeah, I understand, but there's activism, and then there's activism that can affect safety and possibly a dramatic
and it's only the latter activism that gets talked about. You know, if they were mounting a peaceful protest at Heathrow today, blowing whistles and waving flags but not disrupting anything, we would not mention it. We wouldn't send Rachel Venables down there with a microphone. There wouldn't be film crews. There wouldn't be radio phone-ins. Other radio presenters wouldn't invite half-wits from up and down the country to ring in and explain why they know more than the best scientists on the planet. That's a problem that we have to solve together wherever you sit on this debate. So what can they do instead? If the only way they get the attention that they feel they need is to do the things that you feel is so awful.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that. I'm looking at it. Yeah, no, we don't. And but I hope this can be done in a peaceful, safe manner that doesn't weigh on our minds.
I wish you could do stuff in a peaceful, safe manner and get the same attention that you get when you do stuff in a raucous, potentially unsafe manner. But, you know, you can have 1 million people marching peacefully through London and it'll barely get a mention. If 100 hooligans turn up and start lobbing bottles at the police, that's at the top of the news bulletin. It's a weird world, isn't it? But are you based in Mauritius because of your job, or are you on a stopover?
No, I'm based here. Yeah,
really?
Here. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Oh, yeah, but James, you're one of my contacts to home.
Really?
So it's a pleasure to listen to.
Well, I can only apologise. It's even worse than I'm letting on, Sean. Fine, there you go. Have a great weekend in the Mauritian winter. I have no idea what a Mauritian winter is like. Probably better than an English summer. 11:41 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Where's the morning gone? Tom's in Nottingham. Tom, what would you like to say?
Hi there, James. How you doing?
All good, mate. What's on your mind?
Good. Just briefly, actually, before I start, there's a couple of things off the back of the what the last caller said.
Yeah,
so in regard to like compromising safety of planes in airports, I'm pretty sure I read on a Sky News article on the arrest of one of the activists. They'd only planned to fly them at like head height. It was only ever supposed to be a symbolic thing, just to kind of, again, I suppose that's just sort of
I'm going to file that under red herring with your permission.
Okay. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, that's that's just what I'd read this morning on a news article. But I mean, I'm kind of conflicted on this whole thing.
You are right, though. They had said that they were planning only to fly them at head height, but the risk is there, you see. I thought the pilot made that point, or flight crew, he didn't specify what he did, made the point quite powerfully, as it doesn't really matter. We would be scared to have unidentified flying objects anywhere near our aeroplanes.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So,
and also another thing, sorry, I'm being a bit boring now, but another thing's just occurred to me. Explain to me how you can land a plane without being at head height, at least at some point.
Well, yeah, that's a very good point as well.
Zinga! Sorry, mate, where were we?
Well, you'd like to think that people aren't actually on the runway.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just a crucial point. Owned you, dismantled. This is going viral. You can't land a plane without being head height at some point. Carry on, Tom. Sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm personally kind of quite conflicted on this issue. I mean, over the last sort of 6 months to a year, I've done a bit more reading, a lot more research into the impacts of climate change that are sort of coming down the pipeline, and sort of reading a bit more about Extinction Rebellion and listening to a few of their sort of co-founders and members speaking about stuff.
They are moving. They're changing. They're gathering hearts and minds. Extinction Rebellion. I'm aware of that.
And again, to me, it's much like in the way that you regularly every morning will point out to people, just sort of cite facts.
Yes.
To people based on, say, Brexit, for example.
Bless them.
And just say, well, you argue to me then how this is, how this is not going to be the case, or how can we just ignore this and sort of carry on? And I suppose that's what they're sort of doing.
Yes.
So that's what I've listened to. And, given what the sort of IPCC saying in their latest report and what the UN are saying, I mean, these are trusted, reputable sources. and given some of their more
they are. I mean, for the record, they are trusted, reputable sources.
Yeah,
but we're living in an era where the Bank of England and the Treasury are not trusted, reputable sources for in Brexit Britain if they end up saying stuff that the unicornists don't like. And there are parallels with climate change. I think it's important to remind ourselves of that.
You know, and there's no point for me that trying to debate the science of it, trying to debate whether it's actually a problem is a waste of time. That time's come and gone now. It needs to be a debate on how do we get, or how do we try and change people's attitudes towards this. And, you know, sort of non-violent direct action, like peaceful protesting, which essentially it is. I don't think anyone in Extinction Rebellion or, you know, any of these kinds of protesters are advocating for anarchy or harming anybody. It's doing what is necessary at this point to kind of make people realise where we're heading. And it's, like I say, it's a difficult one for me to sort of navigate.
But do you think do you think there'll be people reading the newspapers today, listening to this programme now, who are not idiots? They're not in that sort of 10 to 15% rump of people who still think that there's pots of gold at the end of rainbows and unicorns on the horizon of the sunlit uplands, or that, you know, if you want to work out who you can trust, you can talk to Nobel Prize-winning scientists, or you can talk to a mysteriously funded employee of a lobby group. I think they exist, but beyond that bovine rump, do you think people change their views or open their mind or their eyes a little more as a result of contemplating the possibility of having their holiday ruined?
I guess so. Yeah.
Fair enough.
What else makes them kind of wait?
What else has moved all of us? I prefer Greta Thunberg's approach, which is not disruptive, although of course when she promotes her school strikes, the usual suspects get their long johns in a twist, or at least they pretend to get their long johns in a twist, because their incomes depend upon the 10 to 15% bovine rump of the population.
Yeah,
but she's not hurting anyone.
No, but there comes a point where sort of just talking to people about
what do you
things
do,
doesn't.
What do you do?
I work in a factory. I'm a machinist. I make parts for airplane engines.
I did not know that. Just for the record, sometimes the producer gives me a heads up on things that I might want to drop into the conversation, but I had no idea. So you really are torn.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a double whammy for me, because obviously what I'm trying to advocate for, the change I'd like to see, would in effect potentially put me out of a job.
You would be a turkey voting for Christmas.
And also my sister flies home to Singapore, where she lives, and in a week and a half time, my brother and his wife and 2 kids fly to New Zealand, where they're emigrating to. So, essentially ruling out the possibility of me really ever being able to see much of them.
I thought I was conflicted on this one, mate, but crikey, you deserve a medal.
Yeah, well, there comes a point where, and again, like, I'd love to go and see them. I'd love to go and travel around the world and see all the beautiful things that there are to see, but there comes a point where I've got to, if I carry on doing that, if I go ahead and just do whatever I want now with no real regard to what's going to happen in the future, there comes a point to me where I'm like, well, surely my needs and what I want to do for my holiday become outweighed by potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of people having to move because of.
And see, isn't it? I mean, that penny drop, isn't it? Is the just wondering when it happens, and it's not going to happen in a nanosecond. So penny drop's not the right phrase. It's going to be a gradual, incremental, slow process that's going to involve a bit of compromise, a bit of conflict, and as you describe, a little bit of, well, quite profound discomfort. It'd be great if you could take, just trying to work out a way to help you could take some sort of sabbatical and do it all by boat and train. That would be magnificent. How long would it take you to get to New Zealand by boat and train? Have you looked into it?
I actually haven't, to be honest.
Well, there you go. There's your starter for 10, Tom. That's the rest of the day sorted.
Yeah. Well, got to find something to do to fill the rest of my afternoon.
Bon voyage. 11:48 is the time. Thank you, mate. Very honest call. That's it, isn't it? Works in an aircraft parts factory, but also recognises, as most of us probably do, who can say that they leave work every day with a clean conscience, either because of some of the things they're compelled to do, in Tom's case, or because of the company they're compelled to keep in mind.
This is LBC.
Daddy, you know my birthday party?
Yes.
Can we do painting?
Of course.
And can we have fireworks?
Absolutely.
And can everyone in Year 4 come?
The more the merrier. You're very relaxed about this.
At John Lewis Finance, we've crafted our premier home insurance with real care, so it provides accidental damage cover for those unexpected mishaps. We're also a Which recommended provider for Home Insurance 2019. Find out more at johnlewisfinance.com. Home insurance from John Lewis Finance. Excess and exclusions apply.
Find yourself in a world you have only imagined. Begin your journey with the award-winning Qatar Airways, named World's Best Airline at the 2019 Skytrax Awards, and experience the world like never before. Enjoy flights from London Heathrow and London Gatwick to more than 160 destinations worldwide, including Bali, Bangkok, Perth and Sydney. Book today at QatarAirways.com. Qatar Airways, going places together.
Hey phone, connect to Wi-Fi.
Connecting to cyber criminals.
You're not listening. I said Wi-Fi.
I'm listening. Cyber criminals could be too. Using Wi-Fi could leave your personal data exposed.
How can I keep it private?
With a secure VPN that encrypts your data. You need new Norton 360. It has multiple layers of protection, including VPN, device security, password manager, and more.
Ooh.
Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Hey, you know what they say, go big or go home. So for a big range of over 3,000 used cars to choose from, get yourself to Big Motoring World. Find all the makes and models of cars you need at a Big Motoring World location near you. Go to bigmotoringworld.co.uk. Find the menace from the M25 and now in Stratford by Westfield. Hit it, ladies.
If your phones aren't ringing and your emails have stopped pinging, give your business a boost with Climb Online, one of the fastest growing digital marketing agencies, as rated by Startups 100. Climb Online will explode the number of leads and sales you generate as a business. That's better. If you're ready to grow your business, speak to the digital specialists at Climb Online today. Search Climb Online and make it happen.
The 1304 LNER train, Coach C. Taking aunties with cold hands to nephews with warm cheeks in Edinburgh. Remorseful revellers back to their beds in Leeds. Business mums gliding over the Forth Bridge towards a door in Toddlers in Newcastle. And a band heading to London to our group of strangers in a tiny pub. This is us. These are our journeys. This is our LNER.
Bangers and mash, showers and power ballads, tea and toast. Some things just belong together. And if you own a small business, your double act is work you and life you. So at Starling Bank, we mix pleasure with business too. Manage your banking from one beautifully simple app with no monthly fees, instant spending notifications and 24/7 support. Apply in minutes today and say hello to the ultimate work-life bank balance. Just search for Starling Bank, the bank that works like you. Eligibility criteria applies.
Oh, you look so pale and jaded.
Walls need warming up for autumn. Get to B&Q. Good Home 5-litre standard coloured emulsion is just £18. With our wide range of contemporary colours, you're bound to find the perfect shade to make your home feel snug. You can do it when you B&Q it.
Leading Britain's conversation, LBC, with James O'Brien.
11:52 is the time. I've got an important guest in the studio, but would you mind just giving me a minute to virtue signal, which is, I presume, how it gets described in some quarters. I get a bit torn on charity stuff for the simple reason that I think government should be providing a lot of the funding that is currently coming from the charitable sector. But I untear every year on Make Some Noise Day because government isn't funding a lot of the things that it should be, and until it does, then schemes like Make Some Noise serve a purpose that I do not have the words to describe the importance of. And the reason why I know that is not because I get given the literature every year, or I get given the numbers every year, or like you, I get gobsmacked by the amount raised every year. The reason I can say this so categorically is because every year I meet the people who are helped by the charities that you support by donating to Global's Make Some Noise. And I don't just meet them in the studio, as we're about to. I go out and meet them in the field. Sometimes I drop off enormous comedy checks like you used to see in the local newspaper. And sometimes I just quietly sit in the background while watching the work that they do. And sometimes it's a combination of both. And I just know that without your support and without the money that you donate every year, then the people I meet would not be able to do anything like the work that they do. I just mention that because I do think it's important, and I know how many demands and calls there are upon your kindness and your generosity, and I want you to know that this is a very personal charity for us who work here at Global, and we genuinely, even cynical old sods like me, genuinely have a passion for the work that it does. You may remember last year we met Debs Whiteley, the CEO and founder of Tom's Trust. Tom's Trust is a charity that helps children, young people, and their families, essentially, for children diagnosed with brain tumours. And if you were listening last year, you'll know that Debs and her husband Andrew lost their son Tom in 2010, just 7 months after he was diagnosed with a malignant medulloblastoma brain tumour. And I can tell you that we originally aimed to raise £45,000 to help fund Tom's Trust, the clinical psychology service in particular, for 1 year. But again, because you donated more money than we dared to dream, we were able to grant Tom's Trust £100,000. And Debs rejoins me today to tell me about the difference that has made to the charity. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. So £100,000.
Yes, amazing. And a big surprise as well, because originally we were expecting £45,000, which was already incredible, and so to have that more than doubled was beyond our dreams and expectations, and you know, for what we can achieve with it.
So some people might be in need of a little bit of illumination on why a clinical psychologist would be of such value to people dealing with a very physical diagnosis and its repercussions.
It's a very tricky diagnosis, because a child diagnosed with a brain tumour is either physically disabled, possibly for the rest of their lives, or cognitively impaired, which means that they can't keep up at school, and probably socially ostracised. So if they survive the tumour, and it is the biggest cancer killer of children under 16, they have a long, tough journey. And psychologists help them from the point of diagnosis, which is something I'm passionate about it. They help the families through the trauma in the hospital, the families and the children back to their schools and back to their lives, and helping us new ways of having to deal with what is essentially their new life.
That you and Andrew and Tom didn't have that when he was first diagnosed. Can you draw that contrast for us? Because presumably it's an incredibly complicated piece of machinery and just left to work out how to run it yourself.
Yeah, a journey you don't want to be on, one that you don't understand. You see the word belong to you or your family, because you can't imagine these things ever fall into you, and you don't know how to get up and how to